If you wake up sore, drag yourself to the gym, and your bench press still feels like it weighs twice as much as last week, you're taking rest days, getting decent sleep, but you still feel like you're moving backwards instead of forwards with your progress, in this video, I'm going to teach you what's really happening. But before I give you the solution that will actually fix this problem, let me quickly catch you up on where we are. Over the past 8 weeks, we've been teaching the exact 8-part system that I use with the Iron Forge to write programs for our private clients. And today we're covering part 7, recovery and load management. This is the piece that holds everything else together. You see, you can have perfect volume, ideal frequency, great exercise selection in your program, but if you're not recovering between sessions, none of that really matters. And recovery isn't just waiting until soreness goes away. There are actually 2 different systems in your body that get fatigued when you train, and they recover at completely different speeds. Understanding both systems changes how you approach your entire training week. When you lift weights, you're creating 2 distinct types of stress on your body. The first is local fatigue. This affects individual muscle groups. Your chest gets pumped and sore after you bench press. Your legs, they feel tight after squats. This is the fatigue that you can see and feel directly. The second type is systemic fatigue. This affects your entire nervous system. Your brain coordinates every single repetition you do. Your body produces hormones to handle the workout stress. And your central nervous system manages the complex task of moving those heavy weights in a safe way. So your chest might feel completely recovered because you're not sore anymore, but your nervous system could still be processing stress from previous sessions. So you walk into the gym feeling ready, but your bench press feels unusually heavy. Your form breaks down earlier than you expected, and you miss reps that should be easy. Now, there are lots of variables that could affect this, including your sleep quality, nutrition, and hormone levels. But if this is something that's consistent for you, it's very likely that you're dealing with a systemic fatigue problem. Let me explain. Local fatigue is straightforward. Rate your muscle soreness on a scale of 1 to 10. 3 or under means you can probably train that muscle group again. 6 or higher means it probably needs more time. If touching your chest creates discomfort, you're not recovered locally. If you feel mild stiffness that disappears during your warm-up, then it's probably okay that you train. But systemic fatigue uses different indicators. You have to look at your performance across multiple exercises, across multiple days to see if there's really a problem. If your bench, squat, and your deadlift are all feeling heavier than they should for several sessions in a row, it's probably systemic fatigue. If you're constantly tired, even after adequate sleep, you feel drained during the day, and you can feel a reduction in your overall performance inside and outside of the gym, you probably have a recovery issue. Or if you have a consistently elevated resting heart rate, you've noticed a change in your sleep quality or your appetite, or maybe you just struggle with everyday tasks that are usually easy for you. That's typically a sign that your overall capacity for recovery is compromised. Knowing what type of fatigue you have determines how long you need to wait before training effectively again. Local muscle recovery typically occurs within 24 to 48 hours for most people. The soreness peaks around 24 to 36 hours after training, then it gradually subsides. This is significantly higher for people who are newer to the gym, but typically after a few months of consistent training, 48 hours is usually a good rule of thumb. Systemic recovery usually takes much longer, usually between 48 to 96 hours, depending upon the intensity and the complexity of your training session. So heavy compound movements like deadlifts create significant systemic stress. You're typically going to need 48 to 72 hours before attempting another maximal effort session with similar movements. Where high repetition isolation work creates primarily local stress. You could potentially train the same muscle group again within 24 hours using a different training method. But one important thing to note is that you don't have to wait for complete recovery to train productively. Sometimes training under mild fatigue actually helps your body adapt to handling stress. The key word here is mild. Not training when you can barely move, but not waiting for everything to feel perfect either. It's important to track your recovery using a log or a journal, and there are a few things that you can measure to give yourself reliable recovery information. First, sleep quality tells you about systemic recovery. Track both duration and how refreshed you feel when you wake up. 8 hours of poor sleep is far worse than 6 hours of deep, uninterrupted sleep. Second, your resting heart rate reflects nervous system status. You should check it immediately when you wake up, and if your heart rate is consistently elevated above your baseline for a few days or more, it's very likely that you're experiencing some type of systemic overload. And the third thing you can track is your training performance. This is going to help you to monitor both your local and your systemic recovery. Are weights going up, staying consistent, or declining? Consistent performance drops across multiple exercises suggest inadequate systemic recovery. And what you should do is look for patterns across 3 to 5 days. One poor night of sleep doesn't indicate a problem, but 3 to 5 days of declining markers suggests you probably need to adjust something. This is exactly why it's so important to keep a journal or an active log if you're feeling like your performance is declining. And once you've identified that you're dealing with systemic fatigue, I'm sure you're wondering, well, now what? Well, you have several options, and actually, they don't require complete rest from training. And most of the time, these things are baked into the programs that we write, so it's not really something you have to worry too much about unless there's a change in your performance and how you feel. Number one, you can reduce load intensity while keeping volume constant. So if you're lifting heavy, just don't do as much volume. Instead of training at 85% of your maximum, work at 75 for a couple weeks until you feel better. This helps you to maintain movement patterns and training frequency while reducing the stress on your nervous system. Number two, you can maintain the load intensity but reduce the volume. So if you like lifting that heavy weight, maybe just cut your total sets by 20 to 30% while keeping the weight the same. This allows you to preserve the strength adaptations while decreasing the total stress load on your body. Or number three, you can modify exercise selection in your program by temporarily replacing compound movements with free weights to isolation exercises or machines. This reduces coordination demands on your nervous system while maintaining stimulus to the target muscles. The goal with the way that we program our clients is to maintain training momentum while creating a space for your recovery systems to catch up. The idea here is we want to toe the line and continue to push your body to the limit without pushing it so far that it's actually having a negative effect on how you perform. And the best part about this is the longer you manage your recovery effectively while continuing to push those limits, you'll adapt to those recovery demands and give your body the ability to recover more effectively and efficiently over time. So when you expose yourself to a specific type of stress repeatedly, you get better at recovering from that stress. Your body becomes more efficient at the repair processes, better at managing inflammation, and more effective at using energy during recovery. Someone new to high frequency training might need 48 to 72 hours between sessions initially, but after a while, they might recover adequately in 24 to 36 hours. This is why program consistency matters so much. Your recovery capacity improves along with your strength and muscle mass. One thing that I like to do, especially for guys who are hitting the same muscle group more than once per week, is to structure the training week around recovery demands rather than arbitrary scheduling. So you can begin your week with the highest stress training like squats or deadlifts when recovery capacity is greatest. Do your heavy compound movements early in the training cycle when systemic recovery is optimal. Then, as you progress through the week, you can shift from the heavier loads that have more systemic recovery requirements to lighter loads that focus on creating more metabolic stress. A simple way to explain this is if I'm hitting legs twice per week, I'll do a heavy day on Monday with low volume, then a lighter day on Thursday with a lot higher volume. This gives me the ability to optimize for load intensity at the beginning of the week when my recovery is at its highest, and still hit it again later in the week, but optimizing for the metabolic stress or the hypertrophy so that I can get maximum results in the shortest amount of time possible. Because I know by Thursday, my local fatigue is fully recovered. My legs feel good. It gives me more time for my nervous system to recover too, while still being able to train again. One thing to note is that this recovery management strategy integrates with every component we've covered in the previous weeks of this 8-part course. Your training age determines both your capacity to create stress and your ability to recover from it. Volume benchmarks establish the ceiling for stress absorption, but recovery determines whether you can actually adapt to that stress load. Frequency guidelines work because they're based on these recovery timelines for different stress types. Exercise selection affects the type and the magnitude of the stress that you're creating on your body. And the different progression methods that we talked about last week actually create different types of stress requiring different recovery approaches. Everything that we do in the gym works together as a complete system. And next week, we're combining all 8 components into a complete periodized program. You'll see how to cycle through different training phases, manage long-term progression, and create systems that work for years rather than weeks. My goal with this is to give you the tools and resources you need to build a long-term and sustainable protocol that works for your goals and your lifestyle. That way, you're not playing guessing games, wondering when you should take a rest day, or how much weight you should have on the bar, or what exercises you should be doing in the gym. You have the knowledge and the foundations that you need to implement a protocol that's going to fit best for what you're trying to accomplish and do it in the safest way possible. So, look, if you want full access to all that coaching and the resources that I provide, including complete training programs built for your goals and equipment, all you have to do is just use the link in the description to join my free school community. Inside, you'll get direct guidance from me and my coaches, program templates, and support to make this process simple and effective. And real quick, the last thing, do me a favor and drop your questions in the comments and subscribe to my channel for more real world insights on training and nutrition using methods to get you lean and strong the right way. I hope this was valuable for you and hope to see you again next week, where we're going to finalize part 8 of this 8 video series teaching you how to build your own training program.